Okay, so adding and subtracting decimals and operations with decimals is what we're focusing on this week. So you are familiar with adding and subtracting decimals, especially when you're adding and subtracting money amounts. Money is one of the most common ways that we see decimal numbers in our everyday lives. So the rule of thumb when you are adding and subtracting decimals is that you always have to make sure what is lined up. The decimal points, okay? And the reason for that is because when we have, let's take a whole number. Let's take 243 plus 17. We don't write it like this, do we? No, because our place values are not lined up. I've got hundreds here, and I'm trying to add that to ones here. So that is not how we add and subtract whole numbers. We have to make sure that our numbers are lined up according to place value. So we line it up like this, 243 plus 17. So I've got my ones with my ones, my tens with my tens, and so on and so forth. So the same thing applies to when you are adding and subtracting decimal numbers. So in this first example, 12 and 5/10 plus 7 and 63 hundredths. We would set that up, and I want you to write this on your boards as well. You would set this up like so. 12, let me write this in my grids because that sometimes helps us stay organized. 12 and 5/10 plus 7 and 63 hundredths. Okay, now what I like to do when I am working with decimal numbers, because they can get a little confusing, is I like to focus on an estimated answer first. So what I like to do is I like to figure out what is my answer going to be approximately, or what is it going to be close to? And then I'm pretty good at estimating. So that gives me a good idea of what my answer should look like. So if I look at the number 12 and 5/10, that's pretty close to how much? How much whole? How many whole? We could say 12, or you could round it up to 13 if you wanted to. But just for time's sake, I'm just going to say 12. And then my second number, I'm just going to say 7. You could round it up to 8 if you wanted to. So you could say 12 plus 7 is 19, or you could say 13 plus 8 is 21. So I know that my answer is going to be somewhere in between 19 and 21. My answer is going to be somewhere in the middle of those whole numbers, okay? So if I add these and I don't get something that's between 19 and 21, then I've made a mistake somewhere, okay? So over here, I have 12 and 5/10 plus 7 and 63 hundredths. And notice that I have everything lined up. So I have my tenths lined up with my tenths here, my ones lined up with my ones here. So everything is in line, and I can go ahead and start adding, okay? I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those little boxes. All right, notice that above the 3, I don't have a value. What can I put in place of that blank spot? A 0, okay? And I can go ahead and start adding. So 0 plus 3 is 3. 5 plus 6 is 11. So I'm going to put my 1 here and carry my 1 over to the ones place. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 plus 7 is 10. Carry my 1 to the tens place. And 1 plus 1 is 2. And my decimal point in this case is just going to drop straight down here. Okay? So my answer is 20 and 13 hundredths. Is that close to what I had estimated? Yeah, it's right there in between the two numbers. Okay, so I know that my answer is on track. Okay, now if we were to subtract, I'm gonna go ahead and erase this. No, actually, I'm just going to scroll down so I don't have to erase it. All right, let's do a subtraction problem. And I'm going to say, let's say 21 and 3/10 minus 7 and 45 hundredths. Okay. And when I write this, I'm going to rewrite it vertically so that I can subtract. 21 and 3/10 is going to go on the top. It is the larger number. So I'm going to have 21 and 3/10 minus 7 and 45 hundredths. Okay, so that's what it's going to look like when it is all lined up. If I did a really quick estimate, what is 21 minus 7? 21 minus 7 is 14. Okay, so I know my answer is going to be approximately 14. Okay, now I can go ahead and subtract. But however, I don't have any, of course, I have to start over here in my hundredths place. I cannot take 5 hundredths if I don't have any hundredths to take away from. So I need to get some more hundredths over there, and I get them from the tenths place. So I'm going to take a tenth and trade it in for 10. Whoops, I should have done this first. I should have made this a 0. Okay. I'm going to take that tenth. So I took a tenth and I'm going to replace that with 10 hundredths. So that becomes 10. Now I can go ahead and subtract. So 10 minus 5 is 5. 2 minus 4. Can I do that? Nope. So I need more tenths. I get the tenths from the ones place. So I'm going to take my 1 and trade that in for 10 tenths, which is going to give me now 12. Sometimes people just put the little 1 right there. I like to cross it out and rewrite 12. That's just my preference. 12 minus 4 is 8. And at this point, I have 20 minus 7. Some people will go ahead and regroup that, and they'll make this a 1 and make that a 10, and then go ahead and subtract, which you will end up with 13. However, I'm going to undo all of that. However, when I look at this as 20 minus 7, I look at that as a basic math fact. I know that 20 minus 7 is 13. Okay, and so that's okay to do that. So my answer is 13 and 85 hundredths. Is that close to 14? Yes, so my answer is reasonable. Okay, so make sure that when you're adding and subtracting, your decimal points always line up, and it's always a good idea to do a quick estimate just to make sure that you're on track with your actual answer. Okay, moving